So hi to everyone, welcome to this new QA unit interview. So today I have Filipe Carvalho from TalkDesk. So you already see him in some roundtables, video and summaries that you can find on the blog. So hello Philippe, how are you?
Hello, Antoine. First, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah, it's very happy also that you accepted. We already had some talks around quality, and I think we find some common perspective on improving not only quality but the way we do software. And I think a good way to start is if you can introduce yourself to the audience from a professional and a bit of personal touch, if you want, also.
Sure. Well, I've started, as most of you probably, as a software engineer, and quality has always been a topic I like a lot, and I've started working in the quality area around the end of 2014. I've started as a quality engineer, focused on automation of both tests and pipelines. Then I've worked on that area, mostly focused on mobile applications during a couple of years, three or four, more like it. And then I've worked in different companies on that area. After a while in mobile, I've decided to pursue a different challenge, working in back-end and front-end applications later on. And after 1 year and a half, I've decided that I wanted a different challenge, and currently I'm working as a senior engineering manager in TalkDesk, focused on working in the site reliability engineering area.
Okay, very interesting. So you have seen mobile, front end, back end, so all type of different problems and different people, software, and quality problems. And I think
it's all software. It's all software in the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's if you step back a bit from all these experiences, what are the main problems recurring problem you see you have to solve, etc., and in making better software?
Well, that one makes me think a lot. Let's face it. Usually, quality is not a first-class citizen, as I tend to say. All software development shall include the different scopes. There's the first part of coding, there's quality, there's monitoring. There are a lot of topics that we shall address. And usually we discuss tests. We need to test. What is testing? Is it doing some checks? Is it creating automated checks? Is it thinking about the feature and the value it brings to the customer and validating whether it fills the purpose of that feature? What really is quality? And then we need to understand what we can better do to really test the feature. So that can be done using automated checks. It can be done manually by checking that the functionality meets what's expected, etc. So, for example, on automated tests, what usually happens is that the code that fulfills these automated tests is not that cared. Is not that cared as we expect and as we see on the code that supports the application, being it a back-end application, a front-end application, or a mobile application, etc., etc. The test code, as you usually say, should be a concern just as the application code. Okay, and this problem, the lack of this existing design, usually tends to create later implementation issues. Okay. Well, besides that, we have usually, and it's very similar to this topic, the strategy problem.
Yeah.
Well, or as I tend to say, the lack of strategy.
Yeah.
We have automation projects that start, oh, this is an automation project.
Yeah, like
But
technical project to automate, but okay.
but the thing is, there's an application,
Mm.
and the test is a part of the application. It's not another project. It's not a different project, and
Yeah.
it shall be understood as a part of it, not
Mm.
as a different part of it.
Mm.
Okay, that's my view on that topic, and what usually happens from my experience on other automation projects that
Mhm.
are started de-scoped from the real the application, is that they tend to be abandoned or
Yeah.
revamped with each
Mm.
new addition to the team, for example, and everyone has ideas, everyone strives to suggest ideas, everyone has
A bit
the
in random
interest.
and not linked to objective, etc. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lack of strategy. It's very clear
Yeah.
because everyone brings ideas and there's no real focus on,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we want to achieve and let's go towards that direction. Okay. And this also goes aligned with most of these developments are several times done in a best effort way instead
Mm.
of real concern
Yeah.
with
The
the
overall
utility it
project and
gives, the
objective. Yeah.
value, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm.
well, in the end, when we discuss the strategy or the lack of it, probably what we see is that there are several people working in the area. However, there are a lot of knowledge that comes with time, comes with experience, etc.
Mm.
And as we can see, for example, in the Portugal market, there are not that many quality
Not enough.
engineers
Yeah.
experienced, right? It's not a problem of people are good, okay?
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
people with potential, but uh, one of the things that I see is that most times, probably due to companies not investing enough and not considering it a real part of the application and the value, what we see is that people tend to change to different areas, being
Mm.
because they want a different challenge, etc. For example, myself, I changed to a different area, and that's it. It doesn't mean that I would be the most experienced people everywhere, and
Mm.
there are a lot of experienced people, but there are not enough to bring this to the next level. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
even these
Exactly.
people tend to become demotivated in certain environments and tend
Yeah.
to look for an environment where they can grow. Because we we never grow, or we grow slower when
Mm.
we are the most experienced,
Mm.
or
Mm.
one of the most experienced. So we want to be with peers from
Yeah.
which we can learn a lot.
With emulation
Obviously,
and yeah. Mhm.
obviously we can learn a lot from everyone. Okay,
Mhm.
obviously a senior can learn a lot from a junior, but a senior will learn probably faster from
Mm.
another seniors, and that's how it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting what you say. And your first principles, like quality is not a first-class citizen, I think it's very powerful because, yes, you have a point. We miss the right people to do the right thing, as the right question, etc. But more profoundly, if at the beginning people don't understand quality is a overall matter of value creation of the software, then they cannot understand or define any type of strategy because from the start it's seen as, like you say, quality is test automation in development or in UAT or stuff like that. So yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Quality is a clear part of the development life cycle. Okay,
mm,
it all comes down to the development life cycle, and quality is a part of it. So it needs to be a concern for everyone.
mm,
That's it.
okay. And if we try to do a SWOT, so we'll not try, we'll do a SWOT on quality, software quality. And if we start
Okay.
with like the state, and I think we will cross some of the points you shared that you are recurrently addressing.
Okay.
But if we start with the strength and
Best things I've seen in teams addressing quality is to involve the team. Okay, it's not separation of the concerns. Obviously, we can have a dedicated QA engineer. Obviously, we can, but having a dedicated QA engineer doesn't mean necessarily that the quality of this project or the evolution of this point of tests within this project will be better than a group of engineers without any dedicated QA engineer. Okay, that's one of the things I tend to defend, that it depends a lot of the context of the teams. It depends a lot on the teams. It depends a lot of everything. Okay,
the
context
company,
is everything.
stakeholders, and
That's it. Context is everything. So what's a good thing? All engineers shall contribute to it and shall grow and support quality within the development lifecycle. Okay.
Yeah, it's like all actors should be able to contribute to quality activity.
Yeah. For example, regarding this topic, one of the things that I've seen working well is the idea of when we do a code review, we are just reading code. Okay. And when we read code, obviously we can miss a lot of things, but there are a lot of things that we tend and we should aim to have automated. For example, linting things. No one wants to comment in a pull request, for example, stating, oh, you should give you here an enter or anything. This should be automated. This kind of thing should be automated. Okay. And have it cross the team with the same configuration. Then what can we do in a code review to help teams addressing quality? One of the things I've seen two different things. One of the things that helps is having also any engineer, even QA engineers, reviewing code. Okay, this is a practice that has worked before, and I see it working very well in most teams. As long as the quality engineer has the background and he knows and he can and is able to read code, he can also help supporting the business validation by reading the code. Okay, I really think this is a practice that can help. Besides that, for example, sometimes teams want to test a feature of a colleague, for example. How can they do it? Sometimes it's as simple as checking out the code and running it in our own machine. Okay, obviously we can have all automated processes, but sometimes we don't have them. So
don't need
we
the
can
fancy tools, everything automated, etc. for
that's
some
it.
type of
Yeah, that's it. And it always will depend in the type of teams and the type of context we have. Obviously, we can have it all automated in some parts, but sometimes we just need to validate the purpose of this feature. Has it been well implemented? It's not a question of is the code good, but is the business proposition good? And with that, the approach to checking out the code and running in another machine is really great. And when we have a new feature, it's very common not to have automated checks necessarily for this whole feature, because we can have unit tests, we can have other levels of tests, but
until
potentially
production, etc.
we want implement all the different and complex flows of a certain feature right on the moment we implement it. And that's fair, because we don't even know how customers will react to it.
Maybe it will be
will they
useless.
use it? Won't they use it? It depends. If they really use it and it becomes a part of the core functionality of our application, it can be automated with a different level. But we may even be launching not a good feature. something that only a small percentage of our
Yeah, you
users
iterate,
will
is it
use.
creating value? Then is it worth it? And then you can improve it and keep it. Else,
That's
you
it.
just
It's
change
all
your idea.
it's all
Yeah,
iterative, right?
yeah,
We shall aim to have it iterative and keep
yeah.
growing. We
Streamline the
launch a
activity
feature.
to have a quick feedback. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, after strengths, what comes after? Weaknesses, right? I've already touched a couple of these points, but when tests are considered a nice to have and not a part of the core development, it all tends to start falling apart. A clear example is I'm launching this feature and but I won't write any unit tests for this. Okay, this is really good. My code is really good. When we start with this kind of conversations, it tends to start breaking. Okay, from my experience, the first thing we want to deliver faster is cut on the tests.
Yeah.
Mm, it's not the best. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not the best. Okay,
exactly.
so another part is that obviously not everyone
Mhm.
tends to be experienced in all the topics, and that's fair. Sometimes we are more experienced in testing. Sometimes we are more experienced only in coding without tests. Sometimes we are not that experienced in monitoring, logging, etc., and logging practices. We need to read, we need to learn. As long as we have interest in growing and evolving, that's fair. And sometimes we have lack of experience in certain topics and we are developing an application and we are not that experienced, and that's fair. But as long as we recognize it and start working towards mitigating that part, that's fair.
Yeah, you have probably have various problems in that. You have like availability of resources, the mindset, I would say, for people to grow and learn, and probably the major challenge is probably the composition of expertise, because one also possible, not possible, I think what happens is that it's rare to have someone that knows everything. So you should be able to compose expertise from various backgrounds, and this sometimes it's we all talk about DevOps, but in fact, building software it's a bit more than development and operations. So there's a lot of
Well,
expertise to
one
come.
of one of the things that we shall keep close to us is that DevOps is a mindset,
Mm,
and what it encompasses development and operations. It's a
mm,
mindset to have spread
mm,
in our company, in our teams, etc. And it, it goes very along the concept of having uh, both ownership and ability to
mm.
do our
Yeah,
development and also taking things
yeah,
until production without with the most autonomy possible.
yeah. Yeah, very interesting on this two perspective, like the actual state, and if we project a bit in the futures, in opportunities and threats, what do you I would say envision or
Okay.
foresee?
Okay. I see a couple opportunities. Okay. First, there's a lot of motivation and interest in this area,
Mhm.
and obviously we can consider this as kind of contradictory to my best to what I said some minutes ago. That is that a lot of people with some experience tend to look for another thing. But it's not contradictory. The thing is that we always need different challenges, and sometimes we are working in a certain area and we need a different challenge to keep motivated. And that's what happens here. There's motivation and interest in this area, and it's an area that sometimes and sometimes may have a different barrier to enter.
Yeah,
Okay, uh, and this is both good and bad. Okay, this is not something that we may say that anyone can enter. Obviously, it depends on a lot of interest, etc. However, everyone has the ability to look for content, to know more about the area, and to have the opportunity to consider starting in this without a lot of technical background to start. They can later on grow, have that technical background, to have that technical knowledge. This is kind of different on a position as a software engineer that you probably need to look for a little more background just to start. Doesn't mean that the technical background won't help you. Obviously it will. The coding skills will help you. Obviously it will. However, quality engineering is not only coding. Coding is one of the tools to support a quality engineer. I've seen great quality engineers that do not code necessarily, but are able to read code, are able to monitor applications.
You know how to manage it or test it or verify it.
That's it. And sometimes the coding ability is very highly considered for a quality engineer, but in fact, it's only one of the skills that make a quality engineer more readier for the role, because, well, it's coding. If you can code greatly, but still not code the right thing, right? And I think that's the point. Sometimes we aim not for providing the value on the tests, but look and strive to code more tests, and sometimes less tests is better tests.
Yeah, fully aligned on that. Yeah. And if we move to the threats, because I think software is a very fast changing industry, so probably a lot around quality also.
Well, the threats. Well, it may be a topic that I've already discussed before, but with time, if these more qualified profiles tend to leave the area, they can give their awareness, they can share their awareness, they can have the knowledge. However, they won't be there to support the growth and to support and to mentor the new existing ones. What means is that we have a lot of recent joiners in the areas, but they won't have any, or that many experienced mentors, okay? And that doesn't help them grow probably as fast as we would like. And well, that's one of the points. I would say another one is the hyper growth that's often looked in several companies. We have a lot of companies growing fast, okay? And if companies want to grow fast, usually quality and testing is one of the things that tend to start falling apart first. And this tends to neglect quality in the short and mid-term. I would say that that's an expression. I want something good with quality and cheap. Usually, quality is the one sacrifice in this point. It doesn't mean that the product, it will probably meet the needs of the customers. However, it will be common to find some issues, and people will tend to be more reactive instead of preventive, right?
Delayed feedback loops. Normally, you see the big problems afterwards. So yeah, that's what is dangerous. Mm.
And I would say about the threats, I think these are the
Mhm.
major ones. We there are there are others like
Mm.
practices.
Mhm.
There's a For example, we have a lot of guidelines. We have a lot of content to read in the web, and there are a lot of even quality and testing
Mhm.
guidelines and practices that we may want to follow. However, the thing is how aligned is the industry towards that? I would say things are kind of, let's say, scattered,
Mhm.
and it's not that clear to have a direction on this kind
Yes.
of practices, right?
Mhm.
Um, I would say that it lacks systematic practices, and
Mm.
in fact, I would say that is there are a lot of good resources, great resources to read. Uh, I'll share a couple of them certainly later on. But there are a lot of great content in the web, and people need to be able to look for it. But the industry may have trends, but I would say the trends uh, tend to be sometimes changing a lot, and sometimes a lot of topics are still using the old trends, let's
Yeah,
say it like
exactly.
that.
For repackaging or yeah, but
Just repackaging,
again,
exactly,
same
exactly.
color and trunk. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Mhm. Oh, yeah, no, interesting. We, if we are in this ecosystem of sort of quality, so you already shared some practices like okay, a systematic checkout, including QA engineers, etc. But do you have a specific practice you found effective, or on the contrary, and sometimes it can also be like the buzzword practice that in fact you did differently and that proved successful?
Well, about systematic practices, there are some that I tend to like. Uh,
Mhm.
some are pretty small, some are pretty, well, I would say small because the change should not be that big. Okay. Uh, let's be clear. For example, when we have a certain user story or task that a software engineer will pick, and well, the developer picks the story and would start developing it. But how about having the tester joining and discussing the story with the software engineer and discussing the approach with the software engineer? This would help both get in sync, and
Mhm.
the, the tester would be able to provide both a second opinion and also help on, okay, I'm expecting that probably these will be the edge cases that we'll have to find and that I'll probably look into. And what happens here is that the developer will be more aware
Mhm.
on that edge cases, on that situations, and probably will be able to develop it from the start
Mhm.
with that considerations. And that will help probably to reduce the cycle because, well, the the coding is complete, okay? So between that phase of coding and testing, we'll probably have less iterations,
Mm.
or we'll have a constant iteration because that's probably the major goal here is
Yeah.
having a more constant iteration
Yeah, iterate
between.
on the value creation. Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Mm.
That's it. And I would say this is a systematic practice.
Mhm.
Other interesting practices
Mhm.
for sometimes we potentially want to automate some tests
Mhm.
while we are developing a feature.
Mhm.
Imagine that we know that it will have certain value and that we want to add it on our critical path, for example. And these tests may be on each one of the test levels. That's not a concern.
Mhm.
And if the quality engineer is discussing this with the developer from the start, potentially they are able to work together on this, one focusing on the tests, another focusing on developing that feature. And that will be great for both, and they can always share these considerations. They can share and have a second opinion, and they can be both reviewing each one's work. And well, when we talk about reviewing each one's work, pair programming, for example, is a great practice. This kind of practices, well, we are saying that quality lacks some systematic practices, but in fact, these are software practices. These are not necessarily testing practices. And I think that's one of the points here. These are software development practices. Another one, monitoring. Anyone can have a take on what we need to monitor. We need to know our product. We need to consider what's relevant for our customers, for our users, etc. So what kind of approach should we have here? We can have any role suggesting improvements. We can have any role monitoring really the application and seeing the data and analyzing the data. I think that's one of the points, because if we monitor and we want to take something from it, we need to analyze the data we gather.
User behavior, and if we have problem with user behavior, maybe it's a technical issues or not. You need really to iterate on these various point. So what would be your main takeaway? Because I think I to know what it is, but I'll let you share because you were quite clear on that point. But what would be your takeaway?
Well, I would say that main takeaway. Well, I would say that. Sorry. Well, all the software lifecycle shall quality shall be a part of the development cycle and not a complement. It shall be a part of it. Okay, so I would say this, that it shall include quality early within all the cycle, and the whole team shall be involved on this kind of discussions. If we have someone discussing, and I've seen this practice in some teams in the past, but if we have, for example, ceremonies like refinements to discuss a certain feature, etc., why not should we consider tests of as a part of that feature? Why should we, and I've seen also that practice before, why should we consider that to discuss the implementation of a certain feature, every member of the team shall be involved, and to discuss tests and implementation, sometimes only the QA is a part of it, right? It doesn't make that much sense because it's all a part of a bigger thing, and that bigger thing is our application, right? So in fact, the know-how shall be spread sooner. Sooner. Sometimes I consider that this kind of practices, this software practices that we advocate that involve testing, should be discussed sooner. For example, in university, etc. I've seen several programs evolving in this direction, and I think that's great because it's a really important part of it. Okay, it's a really great part of the software lifecycle, and well, in providing value, because why are we here? We are here to provide value to our users, and that's something that shall be considered, and also something that shall be explained. Our work is not code; it's provide value
Yeah.
to our users.
Mm.
It may be code, a feature. It may
Mm.
be
Change a lot the
deleting a feature to
perspective.
provide better value, right? It may
Mm.
be deleting. Sometimes the best thing is to simplify. And I
Yeah.
think that's something we tend to forget several times because we like complex challenges, we like complex architectures, etc. But
Yeah.
sometimes what
Can
our
be a bit
product really
technical.
needs is
Yeah. Yeah.
to do one thing well, and also having this mentality sooner shared with the team.
Yeah.
It's
Transversal
also
perspective, customer, user perspective, business. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. No, very interesting because in fact, quality is about software and delivering value to users. So yeah, it's not only an engineering challenges for it's the stake of it. Yeah. Mm. Now, very interesting. And to get to that type of perspective, do you have some type of content you would recommend? It can be books, blogs, or
okay.
sometimes also interesting is how you get up to date in the market and communities, etc.
Okay, okay. Glad you asked. I've briefly started talking about it,
Mhm.
but the fact is, and let me be honest here, as I'm not working in the quality area, I don't read that much on that topic recently. However, I can share how I started, how it started to interest me, this area. And it was with uh, different resources, several different resources, okay? It was the Google testing blog, okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
Up to a certain point, there are it's sporadic articles there, but Google testing blog was clearly one of my first inspirations. But it sparked me the interest to know more, go
Mm.
deeper on this topic of testing. Okay. Besides that, what I recommend is Ministry of Testing. Okay.
Mm.
There's a lot of resources from really great testers, really great engineers,
Mm.
and it's a really, really great community. If you have the chance to go to an event, and well,
Mhm.
let's everything is starting to open
Yeah.
and we are starting to have uh, meetups, and
Exactly. Yeah.
well,
Like a
uh,
presential event.
if you have the chance to go to one Ministry of Testing event, from my experience, it's
Mhm.
worth it. I suggest the origin of Test Bash.
Okay.
If I recall well, I've been in the Test Bash in Brighton.
Mhm.
Let me think. I think it was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It looks like a lot more because of the pandemic. However, it was a really great experience. I liked it a lot. Besides that, what do I suggest to everyone? Look for Slack groups, other peers, other communities in the quality area in your town, country, remote. There's a great source of knowledge, a great source of folks to know more. For example, we have several ones in Portugal,
Yeah.
like Quality Engineering Unit, QA Unit.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
That's
we have we also have
quality
the
talks and so
PTM. We
on. Yeah.
have PTM.
Mhm.
Usually focused on Porto, Ministry of
Mhm.
Testing Porto. It's a partner. We also have Quality Talks in
Yeah.
Lisbon, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And most of these, even during these times, have made events.
Mhm.
They are remote, obviously. However, even if it is a remote, and obviously it's not that awesome to interact with other folks
Mhm.
on a remote context. However, these are great sources of knowledge and other peers to chat, discuss challenges. I've I've organized or to PTM in during some years, and I found a lot of folks that I currently discuss a lot
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
on
Yeah. Yeah. You
different laws.
meet, you keep
You
tracking.
meet people and you start discussing with people. It's great for your growth. Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
and well, on a different totally different recommendation. I also recommend one book that I've read some time ago. It's Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Why do I recommend this book? Why? And I think that's clear because I think this book I would recommend it to most people because it provides great tools on how to communicate and have more meaningful and productive conversations. And you ask me, why do you recommend this to a tester? Well, because tester has to communicate a lot with the whole team, with other stakeholders like product, for example, eventually other stakeholders outside the team, and have great communication skills is clearly an important point for testers' growth. So that's something I would clearly recommend for both a professional and on a personal level.
Okay. Oh, great. Very interesting, Philippe. I think we have a very good perspective on what is quality, what is not quality, what is not testing, etc. And also sharing your experience like that, I think it's quite good because it's like an actionable plan. Anyone who wants to grow and learn can apply. So very useful resources. So yeah, I wish you a very good quality engineering journey because I see you are doing already some of the practices and you mentioned some of the systematic way to do that. So thanks a lot, Philippe, for your time, and we see you at the next event roundtable, or we'll see what. But yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
Philippe.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks for your interest in the themes of quality engineering. You can find more content on qunit.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. Bye bye.